route service editing. So you remember we left off yesterday, we had just added stops to our Route 88 that we had digitized and created for our constrained plan TDP scenario for 2035. So our last step in that process is to add the route service to it. So that's what we're going to be starting with today. Okay, just as a reminder, the T-best time periods. So the service where T-best defines its service is in the AM peak, off peak, PM peak, and night. And so generally, whenever we're aggregating information, we're aggregating it to these time periods. And so just as a reminder of the spans for each and the Saturday and Sunday as well. Okay, so to edit service, TBEST contains the route pattern trip editor. So we talked about route patterns yesterday, where you're basically defining an alignment with a set of stops on it, and it will have a set of trips attached to it. So what we're going to be doing is defining those trips and even the vehicle speeds or travel times relative to the pattern. And we use the trip pattern editor to do that. So there's a few things about what this contains that we'll just kind of note here. So it is its own editor. It does have a map context in the middle, but this is not editable. It's really just for reference, right? So, so whenever we dive into a particular pattern and open it, and in this case, it's Route 19, Richmond Heights. It says that right here, and the pattern is available right here, eastbound 33479. The service day is the weekday, right? So we have really kind of three panels that we're able to edit and access information for. And we'll go over each one of these, but basically you can edit the vehicle speed or travel time and the trips by time of day. Also, you can launch this, the trip editor via, whenever you're editing a route, via the trip editor button, right? So as you're using the network editor toolbar, you can just click this button and then start editing your service. Okay. All right. So you saw in the upper left corner was the listing of trips by span and trip interval in minutes, right? So, so what this form gives you is the ability to see basically a grouping of trips, right? So for example, our first line here, it starts at 4:55 a.m., it goes to 7:25 a.m., and it's at a 30-minute interval, and there are 6 trips that are attached to that interval, right, to this time frame. And they're all at 30-minute intervals, so, or headway, right? The next grouping is just one trip that's interval of 28 minutes, and then another grouping at 30 minutes of 6 trips. So as you go throughout the day, it's trying to group by interval. So if you have alternating intervals, then you're going to have more lines in this the weekday vehicle trip list. So just keep that in mind. All of this is editable. So you can come in and change the hour or the minutes here in both the first trip begin time, last trip begin time, and then the interval. All of these are editable. When you edit these, the trips automatically adjust on their own. So so they're able to be, you don't really edit trips, it just gets calculated for you. You can also remove any of these groups as you need to. The other item here relative to this is you can add a new group. So you have this add new new route pattern trips, where you're able to then define here a new grouping, right, if you need to. So this would add a new group to this list. I will note that when editing the hours and minutes, use the number scroll rather than typing numbers. So these individual times, the 0, 4, and 55, there's a little scroll that comes up with this when you start editing it. Just use the scroll. It just gets a little finicky if you try to type in numbers. Okay, let's move on. All right, so the next component of this that you saw in the main trip editor is the timeline. So this is an interactive vehicle trip timeline. that allows you to not only visualize where your your trips are starting. So, for instance, the first trip here starts at 4:55 a.m. So here is your AM grouping, PM grouping, and then AL trips here. So, and your last trip is at 11:40, and this is all in the same pattern. So all of these are, your trip grouping, or your trips are outlined here. And these align with the previous slide where we had the list of trip groupings. And both of these are editable, right? So you can edit within the timeline or you can edit in the trip grouping. All right, so in the timeline, you can add trips at an interval. So you can actually click and hold and drag and insert trips within an interval. You can individually click and add trips. You can zoom in and scroll the timeline. You can copy a range of trips to the clipboard and then paste them into another pattern. You also have a statistics panel. So over here on the right is a statistics panel that will tell you in that the number of trips that are visible. So this responds to visibility within the timeline. So if you were just showing AM trips, it would just show you the statistics for the AM trips. So this includes the revenue trips, miles, hours, estimated cost, and percent of total hours and the stop count for the pattern. So what this is kind of giving you is, a real-time kind of cost calculator as you're editing trips and adding them to the service. It's going to estimate a cost for implementing the service for you, right? So you can interactively kind of, if you have a total that you're targeting for your service, you can certainly use this statistics panel to help you design for better service. Okay. Okay, some other tools that are available, and this is a very handy tool. It's called the nudge tool, where you nudge all trip times up or down at a user-defined minute interval. So basically, as you define whatever interval you want, and it will push up or down all of the trips that are on your pattern. So rather than having to move them all individually, it will just nudge them all. So this is handy for if you have a route where you have a trip start time, let's say at, 8 a.m. And basically that same service, it might be 30-minute service all day, is the same in the opposite direction for your route, but it just starts at a different time. It might start at 8:30. So you could just copy all the trips, paste them into to your opposite direction and nudge them up to 8:30, and then you have your schedule, right? So the copying and pasting is mentioned here as well. So this is a handy tool to be able to copy here and then paste and overwrite existing trips or add to existing trips in another route pattern, right? So it's very, very handy to do. You can actually also copy service to multiple patterns. So if you had 30-minute service that you wanted to test for several patterns or 20-minute service, you could create that service in one route pattern and then copy it to multiples that you would just select and then apply it. Okay, and the other part of this is implementing a speed or travel time. So you would input specific speed or travel time for the route pattern. The route speed update will also update travel time and vice versa. So if you have a speed that you want for the route pattern, then when you enter the speed, it will automatically calculate the travel time. The service day selection will display specific time periods, speed and travel time edit. So this is where we're coming back to our time periods and editing speed and travel time at the time period level. All right, so one kind of thought that you may have here is, okay, well, we defined speed and travel time at the segment level as well, and that's certainly something you could do and is more accurate in terms of the overall route and each individual segment having its own unique time, especially relative to time points. So what this does, if you have existing service and you have several segments on it, you can adjust the overall speed inside of here if you're editing the service. And it gets pushed into the segments, but they retain their original speed. So it's a proportional adjustment to all the segment speeds. It doesn't make them all the same speed. So whenever you're editing in here and for the entire route pattern, if you have individual segments, it adjusts them proportionally relative to the speed or the travel times that you input here. Okay. Clear that. Okay, so the other component of this that is very helpful is that you're able to easily pop up the schedule and where you can verify the trip and travel time edits by viewing the schedule impact. So one of the nice things about this is that you have the ability to pop up the route schedule. So there's the route schedule button is up here, and we are on this pattern 26BO. And so there are actually 5 trips in total on this particular pattern. So what happens in the trip editor is if you have multiple patterns in the same direction, so this is eastbound, if you have other eastbound patterns, it will show all of the trips for other eastbound patterns as grayed out in the timeline. So you see them all together in one timeline, right? And so you can edit appropriately on the given pattern that you're on. So you can see here in the schedule, we have these little glyphs that denote that these are the first 2 trips. It starts at 6 and starts at 7. Here they are here, starting at 6 and starting at 7. And then you see the glyphs disappear, and it's a different route pattern that starts at 7:30. So, so you can see the full schedule, but that the route pattern that we're actually editing is just these 2 trips. And then you can't see it, but they're all down at the bottom. You see these additional trips at the end of the day. You can actually click on inside of the route schedule to switch the trip editor to the other pattern. So if you wanted to switch to 26.0, you would click on it here, and then it would switch over in the trip editor. Okay, so let's do an exercise, and I will exit out of this and come back to TBEST. All right, great. All right, so if you remember from yesterday, we were using Gatorville. We had validated it for 2024. We had created our network scenarios where we had our spring 2025, where we imported the GTFS. We have 2 TDP scenarios that we created, the no build and the constrained plan, and we were building up the constrained plan. So I am going to open that in our network editor. And I've waited too long. Just need to sign in. Okay, so now we have our Route 88, right? And so here's our Route 88 we constructed yesterday. And so we have the eastbound patterns and the westbound patterns. And I think what we want to do is select the Route 88 westbound pattern. That's so I'm on 4.6 route service editing exercise part 1. Add 15-minute peak, 30-minute off peak to Route 88. So so what we want to do is right click on our westbound pattern and select the option to edit route pattern service. Okay, so you can see that it's empty. So we haven't defined any service for this as of yet, but we're going to start to do that. So in step 3, using the add trip range button, add the following service for a weekday. So I'm going to click the add trip range button, and I'm going to just start filling in the first trip begin time and the last trip begin time. So I'm going to start at 6 a.m. and I'm going to go to 9 a.m. Sorry, no, 8:45. Notice I'm using just these scroll buttons to do this. And the interval is going to be 15 minutes, and that's 12 trips. So whenever I'm have all of this filled in, I'll just say okay. And it will add that line to my edit weekday vehicle trips list. And then in the AM trips, we have our 6 a.m. to 8:45 a.m. 15-minute headway trips. Okay, so let's keep going. We're going to add another trip range. This one will start at 9 a.m. and we'll go to 2:30 p.m. And the interval is 30 minutes. Okay, great. So now we have 30-minute interval during the off-peak. And we're going to add another trip range. This one is going to go from 3 p.m. to 5:45. And this one is also going to be 15 minutes for our peak period. Okay, those trips are added. And we're going to add another trip range from 6 to 8 p.m. And this will be 30 minutes. Okay, so it should look something like this. Okay. On the next step, 4, click on the interactive timeline to manually add a trip at 8:30. All right, so now we're going to interact with the timeline a little bit. And so basically all you're doing is whenever you're hovering and moving in the timeline, it's going to say click to add a trip at whatever time you're on in the timeline. So we'll just hover over 8:30, and it's sometimes you need to just kind of work with it to get to 8:30. You can also right click and zoom to the PM here. So I can do that, and that adds a little bit of granularity where I can easily get to 8:30 and then click on that to add the trip. So we just interacted with it and interactively added a trip. And likewise, we can remove trips. So you notice that if I hover over the 8:30 trip, I can click to delete it. Okay, so you can do that as well. So you can interactively add and delete trips through the timeline. Okay, so let's just add some speeds and travel times here. All right, so our AM speed that we're going to work with is 15 miles per hour and 17 for the off-peak, 15 again for the PM peak, and then 17 for night. Okay, that's it. So what I'm going to do is save this. So you can go up to the upper left corner and save the service edits. So that saves them within the trip editor. All right. So one thing I'll show you here is just if you click the statistics, that's where you would see your revenue service trips. And if you scroll the timeline, you can see the revenue service trips and miles, all of that changing because some trips are going into visibility, some are going out, and then it switches to whatever's visible in the timeline. Of course, we can zoom all the way back out, so zoom to max extent, and that zooms us all the way back out in the timeline, and that shows us everything, all of the trips, because they're all visible. Okay. All right, so let's go on to the next step. So add 15-minute peak and 30-minute off peak to Route 88 continued. on the route pattern trip editor toolbar, use the copy trips to clipboard button to copy trips for the westbound pattern to the clipboard. Okay, so that is this button. So we can copy service trips to the clipboard. And now we can switch to our other directional pattern, the eastbound pattern. So just in the pattern drop-down list, I'm going to switch to eastbound. And note that it is empty. We haven't added anything to it. However, I can just use the paste trips from the clipboard to overwrite the existing trips, and then we'll just paste them in. So just the trips that we had from the previous, we can just paste right in, and no need to digitize them again. So just as a note here, you can edit the nudge tool that I mentioned. If this actually didn't start at 6 a.m., maybe it started at 6:30. You could just, you have a 30-minute nudge here. You can just click the nudge button, and that pushes all of the trips up to 6 by half an hour, right? So all of the trips go up. So very handy to be able to do that. All right, so let's add our speeds again. So we're at 15, 17, 15, and 17 again. So those are all of our speeds that we have for this route pattern in both directions now. We're setting the peak speeds and off-peak speeds. All right, so let's save this again. And so we want to click the schedule button and just see what this looks like in terms of a schedule. So, so what we built is we have our 88 eastbound. We just have one pattern in this direction. It starts at 6:30. It goes to Westgate Plaza. It starts at Childs Elementary School. It goes to Westgate Plaza and to Weimer Hall. So if you remember us coding yesterday, that's what we were coding, is from Childs Elementary School to Weimer Hall in the eastbound direction. Okay, just a simple demonstration here because I think this is also helpful. I'm not going to save these edits, but I just want to show you that you can actually come in and make some edits here. So if I want to remove trips using the clipboard or using the timeline, I can just click and hold and drag, and whatever range that I have and I've selected here, if I just release, it will say, are you sure you want to remove the existing trips within the selected range? Yes. So then it will remove all those trips. And then if I want to switch this to edit trips, then I can just kind of click here and start at 11 or thereabouts, and then click and hold and drag. And this, maybe this goes to around, 11 p.m. And this, instead of doing 15 minutes, this is just going to be a straight 30-minute service for that time. So we can quickly just interact with the timeline to add trips as well. And of course, our edit weekday vehicle trips will update here as well. So it added this grouping. If we wanted to change the interval here, instead of making it 30 minutes, we want to make it 40 minutes, then we could make that change here and it switches all the times to 40 minutes. So very handy to be able to do this. So just something for you all to consider, that there are several layers of being able to edit here, and whatever's most convenient for you, you can certainly work on doing that. Okay. All right. All right, so our next task, let's just, actually I wasn't going to save that, so I'm going to close out and I'm not going to save what I just did, but all the other edits are there. So one last step here, just to verify what we have for Route 88. A great way to do that is just double clicking on the Route 88 to bring up the service summary. So what you see here is that what we've coded, right? So here's our new Route 88. Yesterday, you remember I took this little deviation up into the Pine Hill Estates and then came back out, and it gives us the number of service trips one way. It gives us our span of service by time period, our speeds, our number of estimated vehicles or layovers, revenue hours, miles, and costs. So in total, this route would cost $6,359.8 to operate for a weekday. We did not add any Saturday or Sunday service, so that would be something that if you needed to do that, that would be another step when you're designing your route. But this looks good to me, just as a roll up, so I'm fine with that. And we want to save this scenario, so all those edits that we just did, we'll save them. All right, so our next step is just to run the ridership estimation model for this scenario. So we can do that a couple ways. Remember, we were right-clicking on it and clicking ridership estimation. We can also just come up to the ridership estimation model run at the top, the button, and that will just forward us right to the ridership estimation dialog. And from here, we can just accept the defaults and run the model. Okay, all right, so it's running and we're in good shape here. So I'll just move this out of the way. And any questions that came up for editing?
No questions.
Okay, all right. We will move forward. And y'all can type in your questions at any time. So if you want to put them in the Q&A as we're going along, just post them there, and then we'll get to them at the end of the section. All right, so let's start again here. And